Anna, can you come here for a sec? Alex's voice echoed from the living room, pulling me away from my sketches. I set down my pencil, rubbing my forehead. These wedding dress designs weren't going to finish themselves, but family first. In the living room, our kids, Mia and Lucas, were building a fort out of pillows and blankets, giggling like it was the best thing in the world. Alex, my husband of 10 years, looked up from his laptop, his eyes crinkling with that familiar smile. "Hey, love," I said, leaning in for a quick kiss. "What's up?" Alex's smile faltered a bit. "It's about my sister, Clara. Mom just called. Clara's getting married again." I raised an eyebrow. "Again? What's this, her 5th time?" Alex shrugged, looking a tad uncomfortable. "Yeah, 5th. Look, I know Clara can be, well, Clara, but she's still my sister." Clara, Alex's older sister, was a piece of work. At 42, she'd been married 4 times, each wedding more extravagant than the last. And her personality? Let's just say she could make a saint swear. She and I had never seen eye to eye. Her idea of a conversation was more like a one-sided barrage. I sighed, already feeling a headache coming on. So, what does this have to do with us? She's not expecting us to foot the bill for her wedding again, is she? No, nothing like that, Alex quickly assured. It's just, well, Mom mentioned that Clara might want her wedding dress from your studio. I choked on my coffee. She wants what? Alex, you know how she treats me, and my work is not exactly bargain bin material. I have a reputation to maintain. Alex ran a hand through his hair, looking as if he'd rather be anywhere else. I know, but you also know how Mom is. She's hoping you'll do it as a favor. Family and all that. Family. That word always got me. I loved my in-laws. Truly I did. They'd been nothing but kind and welcoming to me. But Clara? She was the thorn in my side, the lemon in my paper cut. Fine, I'll think about it, I said finally, my words clipped. But I'm not making any promises, especially not to Clara. Just then, the doorbell rang. I went to answer it, and there they were. Clara, in all her overbearing glory, and my mother-in-law, sweet as ever, but with that hopeful look in her eyes. Anna, darling, Clara's voice was like nails on a chalkboard. I just knew you'd be thrilled to make my wedding dress. It's going to be the event of the year after all. I forced a smile, holding back 100 sarcastic replies. Clara, what a surprise. Come in, let's talk about it. As they stepped inside, I braced myself. This was going to be one long, bumpy ride. The next day, Clara barged into my studio like she owned the place, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. My mother-in-law, Mrs. Thompson, trailed behind her, her expression apologetic. I put on my best professional smile, though inside, I was anything but pleased. Welcome to my studio, I greeted, gesturing around the room filled with mannequins draped in elegant fabrics. Let's talk about what you're looking for in a wedding dress. Clara didn't waste a second. I want something spectacular, Anna. This is my 5th wedding, and it has to top all the others. I'm thinking something bold, something that screams Clara. I nodded, trying to keep my tone neutral. Of course. Do you have any specific designs in mind? She waved her hand dismissively. You're the designer. Impress me. But remember, it needs to be grand. I want everyone's jaw to drop. Mrs. Thompson gave me a pleading look. I knew she was caught between her daughter's demands and her respect for my work. I sighed inwardly. Family peace was a delicate thing. All right, Clara, I'll come up with a few designs. But we need to discuss the budget and timeline. Custom wedding dresses require time and resources. Clara laughed, a sound that grated on my nerves. Oh, budget isn't an issue. Just make sure it's the best. And I need it in 2 months. That shouldn't be a problem for a professional like you, right? 2 months. That was pushing it, especially with my other clients. But before I could respond, Clara added another jab. And make sure it's better than what you usually do. This isn't just some run-of-the-mill wedding. It's mine. I bit back a sharp retort, reminding myself to stay professional. I'll do my best, Clara. Let's schedule a fitting session next week to take your measurements and discuss further details. As they left, Clara's parting words were, "Remember, Anna, I expect nothing but the best. Don't disappoint me." Once they were gone, I slumped into my chair, feeling the weight of the task ahead. Designing a dress for Clara, who was as demanding as she was condescending, was going to be a real test of my patience. But I had promised Mrs. Thompson, and I wasn't one to back down from a challenge, no matter how unpleasant it might be. A week later, Clara strutted into my studio for her fitting session, her attitude as overbearing as ever. I had prepared several sketches, each showcasing a different style, but I had a feeling this was going to be more about Clara's ego than the dress itself. "Here are the designs I've come up with," I said, spreading the sketches out on the table. "I've considered several styles that could complement your personality and the occasion." Clara barely glanced at them, her nose wrinkling in disapproval. "These are okay, I guess, but they're missing that wow factor. You know, something that makes people go, 'That's Clara.'" I took a deep breath, my patience wearing thin. "How about this one?" I pointed to a sketch of a bold, open-back dress. "It's elegant yet daring, much like your personality." Clara peered at the sketch, then shrugged. "It's fine, but it needs more pizzazz, and make sure it's white, pure white." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Clara, have you considered maybe a different color, like blue, lavender, or even peach? Given that this isn't your first wedding, white might not be the most suitable choice." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Are you kidding me? It's my wedding, and I'll wear white if I want to. It's traditional. Are you saying I can't pull off white?" "No, it's not about that," I tried to explain. "It's just that white traditionally symbolizes—" "I don't care what it symbolizes," Clara snapped. "I want white, and that's final. Are you going to make my dress or not?" Seeing no point in arguing further, I nodded. "All right, white it is. Let's talk about the budget. Given the details and work involved, especially on such short notice, the cost will be around $2,000. Clara's jaw dropped. $2,000? Are you out of your mind? I'm family. You should be giving me a discount, not ripping me off. I already factored in a family discount, I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. The price is actually quite reasonable for a custom design and rushed order. "Well, I'm not paying that much," she retorted. "I thought you'd do it for free as a wedding gift or something." I was stunned. "Clara, I can't just give away my work for free. There are costs involved, not to mention the time and effort of my team." "Your team?" Clara laughed mockingly. "Please, it's just a dress. I'm sure you can whip it up in no time. And it's not like you're some big-name designer." I felt my cheeks flush with anger. "My work has value, Clara. I'm sorry, but I can't just give you a dress for free." Clara stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Fine. I'll talk to Mom about this. She'll make you see sense." That evening, after a long day of wrestling with fabric and fending off Clara's demands, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Thompson, and her voice was laced with concern. I braced myself for what was to come. "Anna, dear, I just had a talk with Clara," she began, her tone soft but heavy. "She's really upset about the dress situation." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I know, Mrs. Thompson, but what she's asking for, it's a lot. Giving away a custom dress for free is a big ask. It's not just the cost, but the effort and time that goes into it." There was a pause, and I could almost picture Mrs. Thompson's kind face torn between her daughters. "Anna, I know it's a big favor, but it would mean so much to the family, especially to Clara. It's her 5th wedding, and she wants it to be special. Her words hung in the air, and I felt the familiar tug at my heartstrings. Mrs. Thompson had always been like a second mother to me, and I hated letting her down.
All right, Mrs. Thompson. I'll do it. I'll make the dress for Clara as my wedding gift to her. But I have one condition. She needs to respect my time and the process. No last-minute changes or unreasonable demands.
Mrs. Thompson's relief was palpable, even through the phone. Oh, thank you, Anna. You have no idea how much this means to us. I'll talk to Clara, make sure she understands your conditions. I ended the call with a heavy heart. I knew I was walking into a storm, but for the sake of family harmony, I was willing to weather it. The next morning, Clara waltzed into my studio, a smug smile on her face. So, I heard you've come to your senses and agreed to make my dress for free. Smart move, she said, her tone bordering on condescending. I forced a smile, keeping my emotions in check. Yes, Clara. I'll make your dress as a wedding gift, but I need you to cooperate with me. No more unrealistic demands or last-minute changes. Deal? Clara rolled her eyes but nodded. Fine. Just make sure it's the most stunning dress you've ever made. Remember, it's for Clara's big day. The following weeks were a blur of fabric, measurements, and constant alterations. Clara was proving to be as difficult a client as I had feared. Every fitting session felt like a battle, her demands growing more outlandish each time. Anna, this isn't what I pictured at all, Clara exclaimed during one of her fittings, looking at herself in the mirror with a frown. The neckline needs to be lower, much lower, and where's the wow factor I asked for? I kept my voice calm, though inside I was anything but. Clara, we've already adjusted the neckline twice. Any lower and it won't be appropriate. As for the wow factor, I've added the embellishments you requested. She huffed, turning this way and that in front of the mirror. It's just not enough. I want people to be stunned, speechless even. Can't you add some more sparkle or something? Clara, there's only so much I can do without changing the entire design, I replied, trying to maintain a professional demeanor. And we're running out of time. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Well, you're the designer. You figure it out, she snapped. Just make it happen. I have to look perfect. As she left the studio, I felt a knot of frustration in my stomach. Designing a dress was one thing. Dealing with Clara's constant dissatisfaction was another. But I was determined to see it through, if only to prove to myself that I could handle even the most challenging clients. The next fitting was no better. Clara walked in, her arms crossed and her expression sour. This dress better be improved, she said, barely greeting me. I helped her into the dress, which I had painstakingly altered according to her last set of demands. I held my breath as she looked at herself in the mirror. It's better, but it's still missing something, Clara decided after a long moment. Maybe some more lace around the waist, and the train needs to be longer. Clara, we're really tight on time, I reminded her gently. Every change you request means more hours of work, and we need to make sure the dress is ready for your wedding day. She waved her hand dismissively. Just do whatever you have to do. I need this dress to be perfect, remember? It's my day, and everything needs to be just right. A week before the wedding, I was stitching the last of the pearls onto Clara's dress when my phone buzzed. It was a call from my friend Lisa, who also happened to be friends with Clara. Hey, Anna, just calling to chat about Clara's wedding. Can you believe it's almost here? Lisa's voice was light, but I could sense something was off. Yeah, it's been quite the journey with the dress, I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. Lisa hesitated before speaking again. So, I was looking over the guest list. I didn't see your name on it. There must be some mistake, right? You're the one making her dress, after all. My hand froze mid-stitch. What? I'm not on the guest list? I double-checked, Anna. Your name's not there. I thought it was odd, given you're practically family. Anger and disbelief swirled inside me. After everything I'd done for Clara, she hadn't even bothered to invite me to the wedding? I'll look into it, Lisa. Thanks for letting me know, I managed to say before ending the call. My mind raced as I dialed Clara's number, my fingers trembling slightly. Anna, what do you want? I'm busy with wedding stuff, Clara answered, her voice brusque. Clara, I just found out I'm not on your wedding guest list. Surely this is some mistake. I tried to keep my voice steady. Oh, that. No mistake. I didn't invite you, she said casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I was stunned into silence for a moment. You didn't invite me? After I've been working day and night on your wedding dress? Clara's laugh was cold. Come on, Anna. You're just the dressmaker. Besides, it's not like we're friends. Why would I invite you? I struggled to process her words. But I'm your sister-in-law, and this dress, it's my gift to you. Gift or not, I don't want you at my wedding. You don't fit in with my guests, Anna. It's a high-class event, not some local craft fair. Her words stung like a slap. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. Fine, Clara. I hope your wedding goes as you wish. I hung up, feeling a mix of hurt and anger. I had put so much of myself into that dress, and this was how she repaid me? I felt foolish, naive, for thinking that maybe, just maybe, Clara would appreciate my gesture. But no, she was the same self-centered person she always had been, and I was the one left feeling like a fool. A few days before the wedding, as I put the final touches on Clara's dress, an idea began to form in my mind. If Clara thought she could use me and then toss me aside like an old rag, she had another thing coming. During the final fitting, Clara was her usual unpleasant self. Make sure this is tight. I want to look stunning, she demanded, eyeing her reflection in the mirror. I forced a smile, nodding. Of course, Clara, it'll be perfect. As she twirled in front of the mirror, I added, There's just a small adjustment I need to make. It won't take long. Clara eyed me suspiciously. What kind of adjustment? Just a minor tweak to the train. I want it to be absolutely perfect for you, I said, my voice dripping with feigned sweetness. Hurry up then. And remember, you're bringing the dress to my place on the wedding day. I don't want any last-minute disasters, she ordered, her tone dismissive. The day of the wedding arrived, and with a devious smile, I packed up the dress, or rather, what Clara thought was the dress, and headed to her place. My husband, Alex, drove me, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. Are you sure about this, Anna? He asked, glancing over at me. I've never been more sure of anything, I replied, my resolve steeling. We pulled up to Clara's house, and I could see the hustle and bustle of the wedding preparations through the open door. Taking a deep breath, I carried the box up to the front door, where Clara was waiting, her expression impatient. It's about time, she snapped, snatching the box from my hands. Now get out. You've done your part. I smiled, a real smile this time. Enjoy your wedding, Clara. Alex and I turned to leave, and as we drove away, I couldn't help the feeling of triumph that bubbled inside me. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Clara, and she was absolutely livid. What is this? Where's my dress? I feigned innocence. What do you mean? I gave you the dress. This is a joke, right? This is just a piece of plain fabric. Where is my real dress? She screeched into the phone. I let out a sigh, feigning regret. Clara, that piece of fabric is what you deserved. After how you treated me, did you really think I'd let you walk all over me? There was a stunned silence on the other end. Then Clara exploded. You'll pay for this, Anna. You've ruined my wedding. The call ended, and I turned to Alex, who was looking at me with a mixture of shock and admiration. Well, that's that, I said, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. An hour after the phone call, I was in my living room trying to relax when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Clara standing there, her face red with rage, clutching the piece of fabric I had given her. Her mother and her fiancé were standing behind her, looking equally shocked but for different reasons. "You ruined my wedding!" Clara yelled, waving the fabric in my face. "How could you do this to me?" I crossed my arms, meeting her anger with calm. "I did exactly what you asked for, Clara. You got the dress you deserved." Her fiancé, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Clara, what's going on? Why are you holding a piece of fabric?" Clara turned to him, her face twisting with fury. This woman," she spat, pointing at me, "promised to make my wedding dress and then gives me this joke." Her fiancé looked at me, then back at Clara. "Is this true, Anna? Did you promise to make Clara's dress?" I nodded. I did. But Clara didn't invite me to her wedding, didn't pay for the dress, and treated me terribly throughout the whole process. This was my response. There was a moment of silence as her fiancé processed this. He then turned to Clara, his expression hardening. "Is it true you didn't invite Anna after she made your dress?" Clara's eyes darted around, realizing her situation was unraveling fast. "Well, it's not a big deal. She's just the dressmaker." Her fiancé shook his head, looking disappointed and angry. "Clara, this is not the person I thought I was marrying. I can't go through with this." He turned and walked away, leaving Clara standing there, speechless. Her mother, Mrs. Thompson, who had been quietly observing the scene, stepped forward. "Clara, I think you need to leave," she said softly but firmly. "Anna, I'm so sorry about all of this." Clara, now in tears, turned and ran off, her wedding dreams shattered. As they left, I closed the door, feeling a sense of closure. Alex, who had been watching from the hallway, came over and hugged me. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, leaning into his embrace. "Yeah, I'm okay. I just hope Clara learned something from all this." The rest of the day passed quietly. As I sat down in my studio later, I realized that sometimes standing up for yourself means making tough choices, but in the end, it's worth it.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.